Wait, he killed people on Twilight Zone?
Well, a helicopter crashed in the Twilight Zone movie, and it killed like 3 people, and then his career like crashed.
Literally.
No pun intended. Yeah, but like 2 kids died. Like it was bad. So I think that's why he probably had to do some piece of shit like Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Why would he let kids fly a helicopter?
Right now is the time for me to leave everything I know behind. No more lies.
But the last time I played Father Christmas, I stood outside the department store. A gang of kids came over and mugged me, knocked my reindeer to the floor. They said, "Father Christmas, give us some money. Don't mess around with those silly toys. We'll beat you up if you don't hand it over. We want your bread, so don't make us annoyed. Give all the toys to the little rich boys."
Father Christmas, give me some money. I love the Kinks. Kinks are great.
Not a traditional Christmas song, but
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely a Christmas song. Yeah. Small bit of trivia. Everyone knows the lead singer. If they know the Kinks, everyone calls the lead singer Ray Davies, but it's actually pronounced Ray Davis.
Oh.
I've heard it from him himself. He's
was
like,
he?
everyone...
He was the Garfield author, right?
It's Jim Davis.
I think they're the same person.
I always thought it in my head Davies. So
yeah, because it's got the I. But he corrected it.
It was British. They don't know English.
They don't know how to pronounce their own names. They don't. Neither of the Davises.
He wrote Garfield, he did. I heard he likes lasagna.
That's not how you pronounce that. All right, I did not mean to get us on a British tangent here, because what we're talking about today does not take place in England. However, it does take place around Christmas time. So we're talking Trading Places today. So, which incidentally is the very first movie on the Rabbit Fighters list. If you look at the spreadsheet, it's
which you can't. No one has access.
One day we'll put a screenshot up. Yeah. So Trading Places is the bawdy 1983 John Landis directed odd couple Christmas adjacent comedy starring Eddie Murphy as Billy Ray Valentine, a down on his luck street hustler, Dan Aykroyd, whose name has way too many Y's. Like I tried to spell this.
Isn't there just 2?
Yeah, I'm just trying to like raw dog like write in his name, and it's not working.
Raw dog.
And so Dan Aykroyd as Louis Winthrop III, as a rich but not super rich commodities broker. Jamie Lee Curtis as Ophelia, a streetwise prostitute with a heart of gold, who are about to have their respective lives turned upside down by both Ralph Bellamy and Don Amici as the super rich and evil Duke brothers. So I don't know where you were in the 80s, but now everyone remembers like the great epigenetics wave that swept across the US in the late 70s and early 80s, right? So like in bars, in nightclubs, coffee shops, supermarkets.
Everyone was talking about it.
Everybody.
Yeah, you couldn't swing a dead cat without hitting one person or another having an animated street debate about the nature versus nurture debate.
And pork bellies. Yeah. People were always talking about pork bellies back in the 80s.
Commodities.
It was a big deal. Yeah. So Trading Places was the movie that sought to put this debate to rest for good. I think they did, because no one talks about nature versus nurture anymore.
What a vehicle for that.
Yeah, so that's the movie, and I hadn't seen it. I grew up under a rock.
Amazing.
I'd obviously seen like Coming to America, and a bunch of others that are on the list from who's the director? John Landis.
John Landis, yeah.
Kentucky Fried Movie, Blues Brothers, American Werewolf in London, Twilight Zone the movie, Spies Like Us, Three Amigos, Coming to America.
I've seen every one of those. Yeah, seen every one of those movies. Those John Landis, except probably the most famous one, which is Animal House.
I have not seen that either.
I haven't seen Animal House. Everyone's like, "You haven't fucking seen Animal House."
I didn't even want to mention it. I thought you guys were gonna laugh at me. No, I have not seen Animal House.
But I've seen American Werewolf in London, but not Animal House.
Yeah, I know. It's so weird.
I've seen it Three Amigos and Spies Like Us, and not Animal House.
What about Beverly Hills Cop 3?
I did not see Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Is that on the list?
Did he direct Beverly Hills Cop 3?
I think he did.
It was because he killed people on the set of the Twilight Zone, and then he had to resurrect his career after.
Wait, he killed people on Twilight Zone?
Well, a helicopter crashed in the Twilight Zone movie, and it killed like 3 people, and then his career like crashed. Of
Literally.
no pun intended. Yeah, but like 2 kids died. Like it was bad. So I think that's why he probably had to do some piece of shit like Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Why
or
would he
whatever.
let kids fly a helicopter?
Well, he did. They weren't flying the helicopter, Joshua.
Oh,
They were on the
they were on
ground,
the
and the
ground.
helicopter
Okay.
crashed. You see,
Oh,
and the rotors were moving as they do, and they break, and like you see in the movies, helicopter rotors are nothing to fuck with.
Generally.
yeah,
Yeah.
I saw it in UHF when he does the Rambo
Yeah,
portion.
It was a recreation.
The recreation of
helicopter rotors and the Wu-Tang Clan are nothing to fuck with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Beverly Hills Cop 3, which is I think it's the amusement park shitty one.
It's bad.
Did he
Right?
It's a
put like
bad movie.
Is that the
Beverly
shitty
Hills
amusement
Cop
park
cotton
2 is
candy in the
also bad.
tailpipe in the third one?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know. He stuffed a monkey in the tailpipe. I don't know what the fuck he did. Yeah, but I remember the one where they had sound sensitive bullets, and he's like, he pours water on his face and acts like a courier of sound sensitive bullets.
I don't know.
That was not a good
I
bit.
don't
That
remember.
series kind of
any
lost
of
the
that.
plot after the first one.
Yeah, well, they try to what they do what sequels always do. They're like, let's just do the same exact movie but with different gags. Like, insert gag here. 5 minutes later, we need another gag. And it's just they sucked. The second time around. It's bad.
But what's not bad is Trading Places.
Trading Places is not bad.
Who wants to talk about the plot?
Yeah, so I'll take a crack at this. So there are 2 men at the center of this movie, and they are Louis Winthorpe III, a rich commodities broker living in Philadelphia for some reason, as nobody did back then, who were rich commodities brokers, and another man who is a super down on his luck, probably unhoused man, as they say these days. Billy Ray Valentine, played by Eddie Murphy. Louis Winthorpe is played by Dan Aykroyd. And these 2 men have an actual collision where Billy Ray Valentine, the down on his luck guy, played by Eddie Murphy, smashes into Dan Aykroyd as he is leaving some Tony building. And Dan Aykroyd's super racist, white, snobby character immediately assumes that Billy Ray is stealing his briefcase. And Billy Ray is like, I'm not trying to steal your briefcase. And then they go on a chase, and the police capture Billy Ray and take him to jail. Somewhere in between all of this, the 2 ultra rich old men who are the sort of like bosses and, I don't know, scions or whatever the hell's going on.
Old money.
Third, they own him or something. Like they own his house, they own his car and his butler, and fucking I don't know how they own him, but they do. They make a decision to destroy this man's life for no fucking reason other than someone has been reading about eugenics or something in their limo rides. And so they're like, I know what we'll do. We'll take the guy who just got arrested and we'll give him everything that Louis Winthorpe, the rich guy, has. And then we'll take away everything that Louis has and send him to the street. And we'll see who turns to crime and who turns their life around. Will it be just circumstance that makes the difference in people's lives, or are people just inherently good or bad?
I mean, it's a solid theory.
It is a solid theory, and in between there are boobies. There is a prostitute who's like, "Hey, this guy wearing a fake fur coat and with a black eye, like screaming about how rich he is." I'm rolling the dice on this guy. I really believe in this guy. He's gonna turn my life around somehow, even though
Who needs
he just
peer
looks
review when
sleazy
you've got
lunatic.
boobies in the movie? So.
Yeah, and then there's their hijinks. There's a guy named Beaks who is a crooked bastard who ends up being the mate of a gorilla. There's a train sequence which is hard to even describe what goes on in it on New Year's Eve.
Big Amtrack.
And at the end, there is a reversal of fortune. And it's the first time in history where regular people actually get real revenge on rich people, and it works. First time in history it had to happen in a movie, because it just never happens in real life.
So we got some insider trading, some prostitution.
Insider trading, yeah. It's
Some light prostitution, yes.
some
Light
light
prostitution.
prostitution. There's plenty of insider trading. And then it's a great look into the old like New York Stock Exchange experience. It's all on a computer now.
Yeah, I think there actually is still trading floors, but I don't think
I don't know.
They're
I
all
don't
just
think they do. I think
bleep
the exchanges
machines.
have floors, but people don't yell shit out anymore.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. And I worked in Chicago. In the year 2000. I worked for this company called Archipelago, and they shortened their name to Arca, and they were an online trading firm.
That's not
and everyone
nearly
was
as good as Archipelago.
I know.
Poor decision.
I think they bought a bunch of other companies and shit, and then they had to change their name, because everyone always has to change their name when they buy companies. And they're just like, I don't know, we can't be.
That's the beauty of an archipelago. You can just keep adding to it, and it's
I
still
know,
an
it's the
archipelago.
perfect name for a company that buys all kinds of other
Fuck's
companies,
sake.
and they're strung together as one unit, but with disparate little bodies out
Why
there.
can't we run this company? That's ridiculous.
I don't know, but I worked there, and everyone was like, online trading? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of, basically. And then I think about maybe 2 or 3 years after I moved on to a different job, I was just temping there. They basically took over the New York Stock Exchange. They took over everything. So it's funny. Like I worked at a company that essentially killed that trading floor that was featured in this movie.
I just think that's a funny concept. Electronic trading, that's insane. You know what's more efficient? Yelling buy and sell orders over at each
Pieces
other.
of paper being
Loud
shoved
as
in people's faces as you yell. That's
Which is the
way
equivalent of
better.
someone just going, take my money.
Take my
Stupid.
fucking money.
I mean, we talked about this during the Wolf of Wall Street episode, my lack of understanding of how this would even work. And I feel like I know even less now, having watched Trading Places, which that scene near the end where it's just a lot of yelling, and I still to this I'm just more confused.
We'll have to unwind that, because
it's funny because like they said, the director
you yelled. Let me write that down. Piece of paper.
I know, right?
What?
Here's a fistful of paper. I'm shoving 2 at you, 7 at him, 11 at the other guy. But it's funny. The producer and the director and a bunch of other people got together and said, like, hey, I don't think they're going to understand the audience. I don't think they're going to understand this ending on the trading floor. And they were like, yeah, fuck it. You know, we're just going to roll with it. And they're going to like the movie so much, but that by the time they get to that scene, they'll be like, okay, stuff happens, and the good thing is the result.
Yeah.
You know, like who gives a shit?
So when they go poor and they get rich, happy ending. Like, but the trade does make sense. I mean, the trade does
make, if you understand how that crap works and you pay attention really carefully, then it makes sense to me. Anyway,
I just don't understand how anyone is communicating with anyone else effectively
on
that floor. I mean, I would just collapse into a ball of just anxiety. And
it's crazy. and the thing is, with online trading too, the Dukes would have been fine, because their guy would have just said sell, and I'm like, he would have executed computer orders to sell, and they would have at least bought a bunch of his crap. He would have lost some money, but he wouldn't have to do the whole margin call thing where the Dukes are bankrupt. He could have just sold it.
I was gonna say, so you guys have been like singing this movie's praises for years. Making the escargot joke at work. I have not been getting it the whole time. Every time that happened, I was like, that's not a funny joke though. But you guys are enjoying it, so whatever.
Funny in the retelling.
So then I finally see it, and I'm like, okay, I get that joke
in context.
It's not funny, but
like
now
funny.
I get it. Now it's the whole situation is funny. It's not the joke.
Satirizing rich people. Yeah,
exactly. But so you guys have been like very big fans of this movie since forever. So why? What do you like about it? Well, like what brought you to this movie? How did you discover it, and subsequently?
It's an incredibly quotable movie. And I think this is probably one of the, if not top 3 comedies of the 80s, I'd say, or at least Eddie Murphy's number 1 and 2. Like, of Coming to America and Trading Places. I feel like this movie was on all the time on cable, which
Yeah.
is so. And I will say this: this is the
cable in the
first
80s.
movie that we've done that I did not even watch, because I have seen this
You know it that well.
so many times that I can explain, and I've quoted this movie ad nauseum for the past like 20 some odd years, that like I was like, you know what, I don't even need to watch this like at all, because I just have it memorized. But it's that good. And I feel like it's kind of between this and Coming to America, of like I've, you know, a lot of these like John Landis films I've seen so many times, like you mentioned a bunch of them, Spies Like Us and stuff like that, or I've had friends that have quoted them so many times. So it's like but yeah, it's just it's a screwball kind of comedy that they don't make anymore. I feel like the 80s is like a sweet spot for, it's not very politically correct at all, or was this weird period where like, well, where Animal House could exist. I mean, maybe it's just all the National Lampoons type stuff, but
I feel like this movie had, you know, like I remember when Obama was running for president the first time, and Harry Reid, you know, the old senator from Nevada, was like, you know, praising Obama, and he was like, he can use a Negro dialect when he's speaking to a black crowd, and he can speak like a white man when he's talking to a white crowd. And they went, you know, there was this firestorm of controversy about it, and they talked to Obama, and Obama was like, look, Harry's old, you know, his heart's in the right place.
Look at him.
That's just how people used to talk. And Harry's an old man, and you know, he can be forgiven for what he said. The things that he's, you know, done in his life and politics have all been on the right side, and I appreciate his place. And
you accuse Obama of talking like jive.
Yeah, right, exactly. You know, he was saying, you know, Reid was saying like, you know, oh, he can play different cards, you know, in different circumstances and stuff like that. And I feel like this movie is kind of like that, where like, despite its missteps and the, you know, and the stuff that is like hard to watch these days, it definitely has its heart in the right place. And at the center of it is an argument that, you know, the idea of like race having any, you know, factor in like whether you're you know, a good or bad person, or a successful or not successful person, you know, none of that stuff matters. Like, you know, being poor is a part of a system that's set up to keep people poor, and being rich is part of a system that's set up to keep people rich. And if you really did give people who don't have opportunities, I mean, this is like what equal opportunity programs were about, is like taking someone that doesn't have all the Ivy League credentials of someone else, giving them a chance, and seeing like how many smart, capable people exist out there that have never gotten a chance to advance themselves. And like, you know, when you drop them in water, they swim like the other fish, you know?
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised that like current like politics, like MAGA, hasn't like latched onto Trading Places and used it as this is what they're trying to do. They're not just trying to move one up, they're trying to take you and knock you down. Like, and like using that as like the direct comparison, like they're Dan Aykroyd you. Like, which
right. But in this case, it's like, you know, it's like the rich guy, Dan Aykroyd, you know, has no fucking understanding of what it's like to have any adversity in his life, you know, to be black, to be poor, to live in the streets, to not have a good job and everything done for him. They make a big point of showing him go through the beginning of his day at the beginning of the movie, and everything is being served to him. And my favorite part is when everything's been done for him already, and he walks out to the car, and you see him just standing by the car holding his briefcase. And you're like, what the fuck is he doing? And then like the driver comes over and opens the fucking door for him. And he's like, as it, you know, like, yes, that's it. That was what I was waiting for. It took a little longer than I wanted. Someone opened the door. You're like, you open the fucking door. He's driving, you know? So they go to great pains at the beginning of the movie to show you how clueless this fucking guy is. And then, and this is my position too, like if you made any like well-to-do white person black for like a day, a week, you know, a month, they would come out of there being like, this country is fucked up. There's some serious fucked up shit in this country, man. I had no fucking idea. And like, you know, in that way, this movie is not saying like that, that race is as much of a divider as class. Like they're going with like, if you got brought from an upper class to a lower class, you'd say this country is fucked up and it needs major changes. And so that's,
the racial aspect is it's like a stepping stone for the movie. Like it's the entry point, but it does go much larger and starts to focus more on
it's
class.
woven into it. Yeah. Like,
I don't think it ends saying anything interesting about class, but I do think that the majority of the film it goes there. But
yeah, but I mean, it's like, structural racism is utilized to keep black people poor, so like that's why it's a major reason he's in the position he's in. But so it goes, and it doesn't become Trump material, to scare the kids, because like it takes a highborn guy, shows him what it's like to be poor, and then he becomes an ally of the people who were, of the destitute. And he's like, all right, now we have to take down the fucking system that I used to benefit from.
Only after trying to like murder people and frame people.
And
go through
he quickly results in
he has to go through all this shit, because like, it's not like that. You can't snap your fingers and this guy gets it, right? Like he has to go through, it's like Groundhog Day, where he has to go through all this shit to finally figure out, be better.
Well, I think that too, and that I think there's the meeting of the two where they're like, oh, hey, like we're both getting screwed over for no reason, and then they kind of band together to be like, oh, this is fucked up. Like let's So it's like Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd like get together, like this, we both got fucked. Like this is a whole, they're just using us, and then they're like, okay, let's go use them, and get back at them. But.
And Eddie Murphy knows something's wrong from the outset.
Yeah, from the very
it's one of the best parts of that whole thing.
Shit doesn't happen.
That whole sequence of him not trusting and like asking the driver and stuff.
It's great.
It's so good.
That's a good scene.
What's my next move,
base where he goes into the house and they're like, all this is your stuff. You're stealing your own stuff. And he's
that
like,
was a long scene.
It's like, this vase, I could juggle this vase around and it smashes, and he's like, oh shit, and they're like, perfectly fine, it's as I recall, we insured that for $35,000, and it was,
they made money on it.
We just made $15,000. Like, you want me to break something else? We're like, no.
that was a really good funny joke.
That was a great one.
Yeah, it's just a classic comedy. One thing it's one of those movies too where the more you watch it, the more subtle lines are funnier to me. You know, like when where he's trying to sell the watch to Bo Diddley.
Yeah,
and he just turns and goes, "How much for the gun?"
I know. It's like, this tells time in Paris, London, Rome, and Stad. In Philadelphia, it's worth $50.
I cut you off, Joshua. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say. That said, you guys are the only two people I've ever heard quote this movie.
Really?
I don't think I've ever known anyone else who was so into it. So
it's so many great lines.
It's funny, man. It's just rewatchable. Yeah. And again, it was one of those movies that was on cable, and like everyone in my family was totally down to watch Trading Places at any time it came on. Like,
it's apparently a big like tradition in Italy. Every year at Christmas time, Trading Places, like it's on TV.
That. Yeah, I did not know that before. Yeah, it's a big one.
Where do you think this falls in the? I feel like this has to be one or two for the Eddie Murphy pantheon of movies. I feel like this and Coming to America are his two funniest movies, in my opinion. I don't know which is better. I feel like I was trying to think about this. Which would I watch? Could I watch more? I've probably seen Coming to America more, but I don't know. I feel like Trading Places is a better movie.
I feel like Coming to America, I have less regard for because it's so fucking corny. The plot of it is like, oh, he's a prince and he's looking for a princess in Queens. And you're like, it's like, I think he'd done Boomerang or some shit by this point. I don't know. It was like one of those like, I want to do a soft character who's like a lovable prince
and
who's
the golden child
searching for love, and I'm like, he did, he does a great job. It's like, it's funny and stuff, but like, it just doesn't have the level of like impact for me. Like Trading Places is actually trying to say something, and it's got all kinds of like it's got some misfires and stuff. And, I think Coming to America has misfires here and there as well. I mean, I think Arsenio Hall is in drag, like in one of the dating scenes.
Yeah.
Or something. There'd be some shit that, I haven't seen that movie in a while. That probably has some shit in it too, where you're like, ugh. But I think Trading Places is funnier for me overall, just because it's
I guess I could have put Beverly Hills Cop in there too.
Beverly Hills Cop is great. I fucking love Beverly Hills Cop. I rewatched a scene where the guy Serge in the gallery, Bronson Pinchot. I was like, that's a fucking funny scene. He's really good.
Perfect Strangers.
Mr. Axel Foley.
Of course, then they brought him back in like the recent remake of Beverly Hills.
Everything is trash.
Ruin everything.
Yeah, it's stupid. Yeah. But
I think you guys are forgetting about Shrek though.
Shrek? Was he in Shrek?
He's the donkey.
No, the donkey.
Eddie Murphy.
Oh, that was like Bronson Pinchot was the donkey
in the pantheon of Eddie Murphy movies. So.
Oh yeah, well the Shrek isn't as funny as these.
One thing about this, I think it makes this movie work too, is like it's got a fantastic. It wasn't the original cast idea, but I think the actual cast is excellent in terms of like the ancillary characters of just like Donna Machi and even Jamie Lee Curtis, who had really done nothing but horror movies. And then I think it was originally written, quote unquote, written for Richard Pryor and
Gene Wilder,
but they were unavailable. So then Dan Aykroyd and then Eddie Murphy.
Well, Richard Pryor was unavailable because he blew his face off freebasing in a fucking airplane. Gene Wilder was available. Richard almost killed himself.
Even I think Denholm Elliott is fantastic in this movie.
He's great.
It's just like subtle. It's like one of my favorite scenes of him is like the morning scene where he's doing all the dressing, and then he makes the breakfast and he doesn't want it. He just like dumps it at the tree.
I was gonna say that. Yeah, that was dessert. Yeah, he's like, you have dessert, sir. He's like, you have it.
Garbage.
Just show him dumping in the trash.
Penelope.
Denholm Elliott as the butler. Yeah, he's great. He's like one of those guys who's just like a bonus. Like he's great at playing a butler, but he has so much humanity and he's such a skilled actor, on top of all that stuff that like, he's not just a stuffed shirt. You're like, man, this guy's really good. I like him a lot in this.
One point about this movie that always kind of irked me though was that because Coleman works for the Dukes, right? So they provide Winthrop with the house and a butler and all this stuff in it, and then they tell Coleman that, hey, I don't know if they ever give him the whole idea what's happening, but hey, Winthrop's out, and then he doesn't let him in. But it's like but then later on when they find out when Eddie Murphy takes over the house and stuff, and then they kind of all come together, like the four of them. But I would have been like, dude, you fucking asshole! Like you just like, I mean, he was just doing his job, but it's also like he totally fucked him over and was like, they're friends again at the end. I'd be like, fuck you.
Well, he was never his friend.
He pretends like he doesn't know him at all, like at the door.
But he was an asshole to him the whole time.
Yeah, that's true.
So like he really kind of owes Coleman an apology. By the end, it's like he treated him like shit the whole time. He just got waited on like a little baby man child. So yeah, I think like Coleman like allows himself to forgive him because of the shit that he goes through. He sees him get brought low, and even though he probably didn't like him very well, he felt like crap having to tell him to pretend he didn't know him.
Yeah.
It's one thing to be like, sir, the Dukes have said that you can't come in. I don't know why, but you can't come in. This is Billy Ray Valentine's home now, and I'm so sorry. And he's like, Coleman? I don't know any Coleman.
Yeah, that was cold as ice, man.
It was cold, Coleman.
I'm under an NDA.
Yeah.
Cannot.
So, Joshua, being the only one who hasn't seen this, what were your thoughts on having seen this movie probably about 30 plus years too late?
Yeah.
40 years. Yeah.
I mean, I think the reason I never saw it is because, I was living overseas at the time when it came out, and I was, 3, 4, 5 when this came out. I was pretty young. And so by the time I did live in the States, it was the Coming to America era. And so that that probably trumped it a bit, and yeah, and so I just never got around to seeing it. And honestly, I'm not a huge Dan Aykroyd fan. Like,
Oh yeah,
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he's not terrible or anything. I don't dislike him. It's like of the SNL era comedians, Dan Aykroyd was always like kind of my least favorite. So I don't know. I never like really sought out a ton of his. What was that one weird one that he was in the early '90s with Digital Underground, where he played like 5 people?
Oh God, I love that movie.
I don't know.
Demi Moore
Nothing But
is
Trouble.
in it. Nothing But Trouble.
I want to put that on
heard
our
of this movie.
list with
Never heard of
Demi
it.
Moore,
It's
Chevy Chase,
Yeah,
and
such a
Dan Aykroyd.
What
weird
the
fucking
hell?
movie.
And John
yeah.
Candy.
Yeah, it's got a really good cast, a really weird
Oh, it's
cast,
such a
and very
ridiculous
strange
movie,
story.
though.
But
It's
that's
terrible.
I've
that's
never
like
heard of it even.
yeah, it's a Dan Aykroyd movie, and that's the one
Yeah.
that like sticks out. Like it's a
Not
weird one. Yeah.
Ghostbusters.
Not Ghostbusters.
I know,
not Ghostbusters. But anyway, so yeah, I think that's why I never really like sought this one out. I think it's hilarious that there's these like rich people who are meddling to a level where they're conducting their own like scientific experiment,
Yeah,
which is just the most asinine plot ever.
People are
It's
toys.
so
yeah.
dumb that they would like take the time to do this. But
For
also
$1.
yeah, they're already like
That's
so
what makes it.
super. They're so super rich. They have like this big business, but they're so they must be bored with it. So let's just get a Nobel Prize. Like that seems like a good thing for us to do over the next few months. Ruin a few people's lives, get a Nobel Prize to settle a bet. That's a really funny premise. It's so dumb. But yeah, I can't think of two other old actors that would have been better in that role than
They're great.
than Don Amici and Ralph Bellamy in that. But
Yeah.
what else? I think a lesser movie would have probably had Dan Aykroyd's character and Eddie Murphy's character more in the loop. Like I really appreciated like the first half of the movie. Like they only have that one interaction at the beginning, and then that like they both have no idea about the other one's situation.
Yeah.
And then when they bring it back together at the end, then that's where it like really starts cooking. But I think a lesser movie probably would have had them both aware of it from like the get-go and just try and like get back at each other and stuff. So that was like kind of a like looking at the cover of the movie, I figured they knew each other throughout the entire thing. So I was kind of pleasantly surprised like halfway through the movie that before they actually figured out what was going on.
And Eddie Murphy's trying to figure out what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
He's not like, oh, that guy can fuck himself. He's like, hey, that's the dude.
Yeah, because
that's the dude that
he knows deep in his heart like
Something's
they're going to
wrong.
betray him. At
Yeah,
the end. Like, this is not he's not set up to succeed here.
Yeah.
In any way, shape, or form. He sees through the bullshit like immediately, which I think is great. A great cast. Really like there's some weird cameos like Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah.
Very early in his career. Not really a cameo.
He's a
'cause
kid.
yeah.
That's like a big break for him. Yeah.
Yeah, like Frank Oz and
Frank Oz.
Frank Oz is the strangest cameo, but hilarious.
And then Senator Al Franken just showing
I
up.
forgot it.
Well, he wasn't
Yeah,
way before he was a senator, yeah. And the guy with him, I don't really know the guy with him. I know
I've seen him.
was from SNL. I thought he was funny.
Oh yeah, I know you're talking about. I can't. Yeah,
Is
the
he
other
tall?
the other
Is that
stooge.
Yeah, arguing about who gets to drive the forklift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The train scene is so
So
weird
funny.
that it's in the movie.
It's weird as hell.
But I enjoyed it. I was just like, this is not what I would have expected. So that like he keeps you on your toes, like John Landis throughout the entire movie. Like I don't think there's ever like anything that happens where you're like, oh, I saw that coming.
You mean you didn't see Clarence Beeks getting ass raped by a monkey coming?
No,
You didn't.
by a gorilla.
know
No,
those?
I did not. The whole time you're just like, that's clearly a human person in a mask.
And a mask.
You all see this, right?
And they cover his
One
mouth.
gorilla, two gorillas.
They
What's
cover
the
his mouth
difference?
with like 74 layers of duct tape, but his hands are free. He's just like, I can't speak. I'm stuck in a monkey cause like he could just take all the shit. He's so capable for the whole movie. And then as soon as they put him in a gorilla suit with duct tape in his mouth, he just like falls to pieces.
Yeah.
He becomes the mate of a gorilla.
Like the level of like conscious decisions to have Dan Aykroyd be like a Rastafari. Like, why is Dentelman a priest? Like, costumes make no sense.
I think like
funny.
This is another one.
They tried like 4 or 5 things and like settled on that. I guess I don't know.
This is what happens when you like we talked about this with that movie You People, where like the white people who think they're down, like, oh yeah, we hang around blues musicians all the time, and we have all these black friends, and like we love black culture and music, so like I can totally dress up as a Rastafarian in blackface, and you're like, no, you can't.
Yeah.
You fucked that hard, man.
That has not aged well.
Even Eddie Murphy's part,
making
he's
fun of
the camera room, and like you're like, but he's black, but like he's doing a horrible African stereotype, It's like
it also doesn't make sense. He's an exchange student.
Yeah, who's like 30.
Yeah, and dressed like in traditional garb. Like, no, if you're an exchange student, you're going to a university, you would be dressed like someone from that university. It doesn't make any fucking sense.
He's like 2.5 feet away from Clarence Beeks, who was one of the people who engineered his switch around and Dan Aykroyd's destruction. And I mean, Beeks is just like, I don't know, whatever. Who the fuck is this guy? You're like, okay.
Yeah, well, he's distracted because boobs.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, but he comes in first. Eddie Murphy comes in first.
That's right.
Then he doesn't recognize Coleman.
Beef jerky time.
Coleman's disguised as an Irish accent. Like Coleman, but he has an Irish accent and a flask.
Drunk priest or something.
How stupid is Beaks supposed to be? Jesus Christ.
Yeah. He did see through it and threatened to remove her kidney.
Well, he sees him switch the briefcases the second time, and he's like, ugh.
Yeah.
No
so
more Swedish meatballs.
Like overall, I did.
Tootsie.
I appreciated what they were like trying to like kind of get at, and I think that you can be forgiven. Like all the like the very politically incorrect things that come out through the movie can be forgiven to a certain extent because they were trying to do something like legitimately funny and punching up. Like they're punching up at the upper classes. Did they successfully do it? I would argue like they didn't. It kind of falls apart at the very, very end, where the moral is everyone just should become rich, or like just that's the answer, is like
I've seen that
they only win by becoming them becoming rich too. And guess what? The butler now gets a butler. Like that's not the lesson. Like that's not the lesson we should be taking away from this. So if the movie was made now, I feel like it would probably have a different ending. Funnier, I don't know, but I felt like that rubbed me the wrong way at the end, that they were this close. They were this close to making like a really like on point like statement about class, and they're like, no, the answer is just everyone gets you should get a yacht and you should get your own butler, and that's it. But
yeah, it's stuff like, and the butler of the butler is like, extra primo good sir. I don't even know what the hell that accent was supposed to be, but like,
yeah. Looking at Eddie Murphy, like, did you guys learn nothing with this entire thing? Like, you just became the bad guys.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like this is peak raw Eddie Murphy. But I have this, I think we probably talked about this. I hate this about the comedic theory, where most comedians who are younger in their careers are kind of more raw and they're really funny and they don't pull punches. And then as they age or gain success, it just gets like more neutered to like the next thing they're doing is like cartoon movies that are fucking terrible. Or it's like what the fuck happened to like Eddie Murphy raw from the 80s, and now he's like, the donkey, and I mean it's money, right? Or he's like Pluto Nash or some bullshit.
Mushu from fucking Mulan.
I get it. Like they're gonna pay me $300 million to be a fucking donkey. Cool, whatever. But
I've never seen Pluto Nash. It's supposed to be really, really bad. We should.
I haven't seen it. Yeah,
I've never seen it.
I just always thought that was kind of fascinating, that arc of like, young raw comedians, even Chris Rock or whatever. Then things you find fame, and then you start doing, like, okay, even Chris Rock, for example, then like fast forward 20 years and he's doing Grown Ups 2 with fucking, like, and you're like, wait, what happened to that really fucking funny guy that like they don't take risks anymore? It's like, even Jamie Foxx is another one, same thing. But
Chris Rock isn't a very good actor either.
No,
he's a really basic actor.
Yeah.
Jamie Foxx is a good actor though.
No, yeah, that's true. He might actually become an actor, but I mean, I remember Jamie Foxx is in Living Color, like
yeah. In Living Color had a lot of talent in that show, man.
I know, that's crazy. I mean,
that was a good bunch.
I loved In Living Color. I think it's better
David
than
Allen
SNL.
Greer is funny as hell.
A lot of those guys went on to be famous. Yeah, David Allen Greer, and then obviously Jim Carrey. But I mean,
yeah,
Tommy Davidson,
all the
Wayans, all the Wayans, yeah.
Yeah.
Which made me think of this because you were talking about those movies and made me think of what's the other one? Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the
drinking
hood.
your juice in the hood. Yeah. I never saw that one, but that was the lesser Wayanses, wasn't it? The kids, the little ones,
Sean and
the little dudes. Yeah, Sean and Marlon. I think
yeah.
that
Was that a play on
Wayans.
like the Dangerous? I thought that was like a spoof of Friday and something else.
It was a spoof of all these movies, like Juice,
And Menace or Menace Society or something.
Menace to Society. They they're so clever that they use the movie titles all mashed together in the title.
I never saw Juice.
And then Blank Man.
Oh my God, Damon Wayans.
Yeah,
The fuck is that? I don't even know that.
I remember he's a superhero.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Wasn't that supposed to be terrible?
I probably saw it once when I was a kid, but
I don't even know what we're talking about anymore.
yeah,
I know.
we're going down the rabbit hole here. So should we rate the sucker?
Well, I guess like before we go, are there any last things we want to say? Any things like we didn't like that we haven't said yet?
Well, one thing I did want to say that I feel like I happen to give things more of a pass than you guys do, in the sense of like when I watch movies like this or Coming to America or Animal House or those, Caddyshack, even things like that, like I'm able to kind of.
I've never seen Caddyshack.
Oh my God. Like
Caddyshack's good.
I'm able to sort of mentally time box it and rationale of like, this is a movie made in a time and a place where these things, not to say they were acceptable but didn't take itself so seriously. Like does Coming to America or does Trading Places need to, I don't know how the right way to put this, but like the blackface scene with Dan Aykroyd, like, does it need to apologize for that? Because it wasn't correct, and it's not correct now. Watching it, you're like, that's okay, that's fucked up. But in 1980, whatever, like, you see that, and that wasn't as offensive, and you're like, but I watch it today, I'm just like, well, that's a time and a place where that. Never saying it wasn't offensive. It's just like in a comedy, it kind of gets a pass in some cases in some of these movies where, I'm never looking for like I guess I've never really watched Trading Places as like, what's the message? Like, it's like I kind of look at it as like, I mean, I don't know. It's like, what's the message in Coming to America? It's a comedy. Like, it's supposed to be funny. Did it make me laugh?
Trading Places, there is a message. Definitely there's a message. There's a bunch of them. I mean, Coming to America, there's no message. The message in Coming to America is like, we want to put on funny faces and make, me and Arsenio Hall each play like 19 characters. Like,
yeah, but
that's it.
If the big message in Trading Places is like, eat the rich, and they just become rich at the end anyways, like you said earlier, there's no point. I mean, it's not.
Well, no, but it's there. But there is a story about like, like what is exceptionalism, like there's this idea of like white exceptionalism and upper class exceptionalism, but it's just like, it's like Trump. It's like people being floated by generational wealth, and like they can screw up as many times as they want and they'll always get a life raft chucked to them, and people who are poor have like zero life rafts, and if you gave money to people who didn't have opportunities, would they succeed? Many of them would. Many of them would fail, but also they'd be allowed to fail up, they'd have life rafts. So, like what's the big deal about,
yeah, I see what you're saying, Brian. I feel like Greg and I are probably more predisposed to I don't know, going down this path of like, I don't know, trying to view it in today's context, but that's not necessarily right or wrong. I don't know.
I mean,
I would say if there's any argument to be made for me, 1983, I think it's far enough back where, I mean, you might be right, you might be wrong. I don't know that whether they have to apologize for it. Blackface in 1995, yes, apologize for it.
Yeah, agree.
Not blackface in 2016, yes, apologize for it. But probably your career is ruined because you should have fucking known by then that is completely unacceptable. 83, I don't know where the line is, like in the timeline of where like we as a society were finally like looking inwardly and like, oh shit, this it really isn't that funny. 83, I don't know where that is, but I get your point.
You know that sketch from I Think You Should Leave where he's like, I used to be a piece of shit, like the baby, the crying baby, he's like,
people can change.
He could probably tell that you used to be a piece of shit, and,
I was a huge piece of shit.
Yeah, I feel like it's okay to apologize for something that you didn't have to apologize for in the time that you did it. I mean, like,
that's fair. I mean,
you could act like a dick in a time where it was expected of men to act like dicks, and still grow up and be like, I'm sorry I acted that way. It was a fucked up way to treat people, or whatever. You can apologize for blackface 35 years later when you wouldn't have had to apologize for it when you did it. And it's fine. It doesn't diminish the movie, in my opinion, because I feel like the movie wasn't trying to trash black people. I don't think it was. I think pretty much kind of the opposite. So you really just have to go with intent. Like, what did they intend to do? And if they made mistakes along the way that were considered acceptable back then, it's still okay to be like, that was a mistake, but it doesn't dim my enjoyment of this movie. It doesn't like kill the movie for me. I can just cringe at it like you cringe at something your grandparent might say, even though you love your grandparent. You're like,
yeah. All right. On a scale of armchair mycologists to armchair cartographers, mycologists being F- and cartographers being an A+.
And what is a mycologist?
Someone who studies fungus.
Oh. I love you thought that I would know that.
I like how you went with a scale that's not related to the movie at all.
No, I mean, these are armchair sociologists. The Dukes. Are you with me? Like they just are deciding, like, we're good scientists. We can lay this out here, no problem.
I'll allow it because you thought I was smart enough to just casually know what a mycologist was.
Yeah, on a scale of like, who do you want to be an armchair scientist? Like, granted, cartography is an applied science, not
yeah.
F- A+.
Mycologist to a cartographer. You just like cartographers because you went to cartography school.
I do love a good cartographer. But,
yeah. This is like a Harry Reid movie for me. Where you're like, yeah, it has some missteps because of its age, but its heart is in the right place. It's a funny movie. Everyone in it is good. The Dukes are great. It's great to see them pulled out of mothballs, essentially, those two actors. Like Don Amici hadn't done a movie in like 11 years, 13 years, something like that.
Reignited their careers.
Yeah, reunited their careers. They had that little cameo in Coming to America, which is just just genius.
We're back.
Mortimer, we're back. And they have the best line in the whole movie.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It never made sense to me.
Really?
That's it. The Dukes, they get a pile of money and they're back.
Holy shit.
Yeah. See, this is why you had to see this movie.
Right.
Makes Coming to America makes sense. But they also get the best line in the movie when they lose all their money and they're doing the margin call. And he's like, Mortimer, your brother is not well. And he's like, fuck him.
Yeah, that was really
funny. Don Amici say that. So yeah, everyone's great in this. I would give this an A. I'm overlooking the warts of the 80s and just going with the overall feeling that it gives me, what the amount of stuff that I think is funny in it. The fact that they're trying to say something actually and not just be funny, like Coming to America, where it's like, oh, he gets his dick sucked in a hot tub, like they're doing more stuff with this movie.
Hilariously.
I know, yeah. The royal penis is clean, sire. Oh, thank you. This has aspirations, and it doesn't carry off all the aspirations. It muddies the message in the end, as you guys both pointed out, as I think Joshua maybe. The answer to being poor is to be rich and have your own butler if you're a butler. But it gets a lot right, and it just makes me laugh. And I watched it twice again because I hadn't seen it in a while, and I was like, it's enjoyable as hell.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's an easy A. I mean,
Yep.
it's a classic. It's like a little legendary comedy in my opinion. Like I said, it might be the only one episode we do where I don't listen or watch it just because I've seen. If we ever did Coming to America, I wouldn't need to watch that either. But I've just seen it so many times, and like I think I sort of fell in love with this movie, and I think I have actually mentioned it to a couple of people outside of Joshua, and they hadn't seen it. Like a very good friend of mine, we watched it together. But again, they had seen Coming to America, but just like, have you ever seen Trading Places? Like, I feel like these two are like would be sold as a DVD 2-pack, like,
Right.
you know, at Walmart or something. Like they're always kind of paired together. And if I had to put a third DVD, I'd probably say like Caddyshack is in there with them, you know. But
strangely enough,
I would put Beverly Hills Cop in there probably, but yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, like in my mind, I compartmentalize these like levels of comedy of like Coming to America, Animal House. You know, I don't think Beverly Hills Cop is as funny. Because it's more of a, I'd say it's more of a movie, but
it's a drama with comedy in it.
Yeah, as opposed to trying to be a straight comedy.
About that. Yeah, that's true.
But I feel like at least, you know, those three movies, and I'm sure there's a couple other ones that I just have seen 1,000 times. You know that because I quote them ad nauseum, even like, and it's, you know, the ones where the minor lines are funny to me, and I like quoting those because then, you know, you can tell who really likes the movie. But so yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, it's interesting to see it through the lens of, I never really kind of thought about the messaging or what's it trying to say. I mean, obviously I understood, like, you know, you're rich, you're poor, and this is how it turns out and those kind of things. But I guess, you know, I tend to look through, for some reason, 80s comedies, I kind of look at through rose-colored glasses a little bit. Yeah, if there's definite warts and things that I'd be like,
the only way to watch them. Yeah,
that's certainly not going to fucking fly. You couldn't do this today. But, you know, I think this batch of comedy in that time period gets away with a lot. But it also had really fantastic comedians. I feel like that's you know, helps, you know, that kind of sweet spot of like the SNL / comedians that came out of this kind of time period. It'd be hard to find a comedy that might, in my head, that beats this, but I'd say A+, but it's not. I mean, I don't know how many comedies can really hit that level of maybe if there wasn't like the extremely offensive parts of it, but you know. But I mean, there's just so many good lines. Even the end, the "looking good, Billy Ray," "feeling good, Lewis."
We do that all the time in my family. Looking good, Billy Ray.
Feeling good, Lewis.
Feeling good, Lewis.
It's probably number one on our list because of Greg and I quoting.
Yes, exactly.
And Joshua being like, "What the fuck are you guys talking about? Look at that S-car go." I do know that we've quoted the Mortimer brothers now. Fuck him.
Fuck him. I think that Joshua felt the most like annoyed probably by our.
Now you're in on the joke.
I like a good inside joke. I hope to be a part of one day.
So Joshua, did the movie live up to the hype of us?
I don't think it lived up to the hype, but I did think it was good. I don't know that I could call it a classic because it's, you know, I've only seen it now. If I'd grown up on it, maybe I would agree with you. I don't think it's an A. I think it's like a B or a B+. I probably have to watch it a few more times in order to like really decide. I mean, I think just on the weight of the cast alone, I mean, it's approaching A. There are a lot of legitimately funny jokes, really funny comedians. I agree with everything you said about the cast. Like it's a really great cast. I think, you know, all the controversial stuff that I think a lot of people, you know, talk about these days with Trading Places, like, is it a racist movie? I don't know whether any of that applies. I think you can compartmentalize and you put it in its time and examine it from this side, and that's totally fine. It's a piece of art, a piece of culture that was created in '83. So I'm glad I finally saw it. You know, I don't think it's going to become an Italian tradition in my household, but yeah, I'm sure I'll watch it again. Non sequitur. I said ad hoc earlier. I meant non sequitur.
Oh, yeah. That was a non sequitur in its own.
And I said fungus, and I meant fungi. Anyway.
Oh boy.
All right.
So you get 2 A's and did you give it a B or a B+?
If I make an assessment, I'm going to say B+.
Okay.
B+. Okay.
I'll say B+. So next episode is episode number 50. 50.
Man.
Yeah. So we're going to do something super special.
Yeah.
So special. We'll tell you about it next week.
We'll do that thing with the Simpsons did when they had the Super Bowl episode. And they were like, I can't wait to see the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, Greg, when you told me the idea for this next episode,
I was shocked.
I couldn't believe that Greg said we should that type of episode.
Absolutely. No brainer. That's what we're going to do.
Couldn't believe he came up with such a concept.
Yeah. So
you're
in for a treat, everybody.
I mean, I wouldn't say we really took the podcast world by storm. We don't really have
light
how many followers. Do we have any? Have we have an uptick in followers in the past year?
Well, yeah. Well, here's the thing: we aren't really trying.
That's very true.
We have
That's true.
Because trying would be selling out.
Yeah,
that's right.
But we are willing to sell out immediately if somebody.
It's honestly easier to record something when you think no one's listening.
That's
honestly,
very true.
That's the secret sauce.
It's the secret sauce, man.
I mean, it hasn't worked for us, but
yeah,
that's the secret sauce.
How many episodes do you think we'd actually get to? Do you think we'd make it to 50?
I put us down for 30 initially.
Really?
I thought we'd hit 30. I'm proud of us.
Well, we saw that most podcasts fail at a certain number. We're
20.
like, well, we can hit that number.
Yeah.
I thought, somewhere between 6 and 8.
Ye of little faith.